Good morning, Internet. How you doing today? This is Jeremy Reads Aloud Self-Help Books. And on this page stream, I share books for self-improvement for women and men. Specifically, we're reading a book called King, Warrior, Magician, Lover, Rediscovering the Archetypes of the Mature Masculine by Robert Moore and Doug Gillette. It's specifically for men, but women may find it encouraging as well. How young men who perhaps were not properly integrated, properly developed, can learn to integrate the archetypes and to become real men. We're in chapter 3, Boy Psychology. We're now on page 35, and the subheading is The Mama's Boy. We'll read as far as time will permit us, because I have other projects to work on. The Mama's Boy. The Oedipus child's shadow consists of the Mama's Boy and the Dreamer. The Mama's Boy is, as we all know, tied to Mama's apron strings. He causes a boy to fantasize about marrying his mother, about taking her away from his father. If there is no father, or a weak father, this so-called Oedipal urge comes on all the stronger, and this crippling side of the Oedipal child's bipolar shadow may possess him. The term Oedipus complex comes from Freud, who saw in the legend of the Greek king Oedipus a mythological account of this immature masculine energy form. The story is familiar. King Laius and his wife Jocasta had a baby boy whom they named Oedipus because of a prophecy that said that Oedipus would grow up to kill his father. Laius had this special child taken out into the country and exposed on a hillside, where it was assumed the elements would kill him. However, as is always the case with divine boys, Oedipus was rescued. He was found by a shepherd and raised to manhood. One day, as Oedipus was walking along a country road, a chariot nearly ran him down. He got into a fight with the owner of the chariot and killed him. The chariot's owner, unbeknownst to him, was his father Laius. Oedipus then went on to Thebes, where he learned that the queen was seeking a husband. The queen was Jocasta, his mother. Oedipus married her and took his father's throne. It was only years later, when blight descended upon the kingdom, that the awful truth was uncovered, and Oedipus, the wrongful king, was cast down. The underlying psychological truth in the story is that Oedipus was unconsciously inflated. He was struck down by the gods for killing his father, the quote-unquote god, and marrying his mother, the quote-unquote goddess. Thus, he was destroyed for the inflation of his unconscious pretensions to godhood. For every child, from a developmental point of view, mother is the goddess and father is the god. Boys who are too bound to the mother get hurt. Page 335. King, warrior, magician, lover. There is also the story of Adonis, who became the lover of Aphrodite, the goddess of love. A mortal boy making claims on a goddess could not be tolerated, so Adonis was struck down by a wild boar, really a god in animal form, the father, and killed. Something else happened to the mama's boy. He often gets caught up in chasing the beautiful, the poignant, the yearning for union with mother from one woman to another. He can never be satisfied with a mortal woman because what he is seeking is the immortal goddess. Here we have the Don Juan syndrome, the Oedipal child, inflated beyond mortal dimensions, cannot be bound to one woman. In addition, the boy under the power of the mama's boy is what is called autoerotic. He may compulsively masturbate. He may be into pornography, seeking the goddess in the nearly infinite forms of the female body. Some men, under the infantile power of the mama's boy aspect of the Oedipal child, have vast collections of pictures of nude women, alone, or making love with men. He is seeking to experience his masculinity, his phallic power, his generativity. But instead of affirming his own masculinity as a mortal man, he is really seeking to experience the penis of God, the great phallus that experiences all women, or rather that experiences union with the mother goddess in her infinity of female forms. Caught up in masturbation and the compulsive use of pornography, the mama's boy, like all immature energies, wants just to be. He does not want to do what it takes to actually have union with a mortal woman and to deal with all the complex feelings involved in an intimate relationship. He does not want to take responsibility. Wow, that's intense reading there. Page 36 now, we're on subheading The Dreamer. The Dreamer. The other pole of the dysfunctional shadow of the Oedipal child is the dreamer. The dreamer takes the spiritual impulses of the Oedipal child to an extreme, whereas the boy possessed by the mama's boy also shows signs of passivity. He at least actively seeks quote-unquote mother. The dreamer, however, causes a boy to feel isolated and cut off from all human relationships. For the boy who is under the spell of the dreamer, relationships are with intangible things and with the world of, page 37, the world of imagination within him. As a consequence, while other children are playing, he may sit on a rock, dreaming his dreams. He accomplishes little and appears withdrawn and depressed. Often, his dreams tend to be melancholy on the one hand, or highly idyllic and ethereal on the other. The boy possessed by the dreamer, like a boy possessed by some of the other shadow poles, is less than honest, though his dishonesty is usually unconscious. His isolated, ethereal behavior may mask the hidden and opposite pole of the Oedipal child's shadow, the mama's boy. What this boy really shows, in a roundabout way, is his peak at failing to achieve possession of the mother. His grandiosity in seeking to possess the mother lies hidden under the dreamer's depression. Page 37 of the book, King, Warrior, Magician, Lover. I'm going to continue on reading until I get tired. Page 37, the hero. There is much confusion about the archetype of the hero. It is generally assumed that the heroic approach to life or to a task is the noblest, but this is only partly true. The hero is, in fact, only an advanced form of boy psychology, the most advanced form, the peak, actually, of the masculine energies of the boy, the archetype that characterizes the best in the adolescent stage of development. Yet it is immature, and when it is carried over into adulthood as the governing archetype, it blocks men from full maturity. If we think about the hero as the grandstander or the bully, this negative aspect becomes clearer. Page 37, the subheading, the grandstander bully. The boy or man, under the power of the bully, intends to impress others. His strategies are designed to proclaim his superiority and his right to dominate those around him. He claims center stage as his birthright. If ever his claims to special status are challenged, watch the ensuing rageful displays. He will assault those who question what they smell as his inflation with vicious verbal and often physical abuse. These attacks against others are aimed at staving off recognition of his underlying cowardice and his deep insecurity. The man still under the influence, page 38. Influence of this negative aspect of the hero is not a team player. He is a loner. He's a hotshot junior executive, salesman, revolutionary, stock market manipulator. He's the soldier who takes unnecessary risks in combat and, if he's in a position of leadership, requires the same of his men. Many a story has come out of Vietnam, for instance, about the heroic young officers bucking for promotion, who often required their men to risk their lives in brave gestures. Some of these officers were, quote unquote, fragged, for example, killed for their inflated heroic attitudes. Another example is the character played by Tom Cruise in the movie Top Gun. Here was a young fighter pilot, highly motivated, who would listen to no one, a young man who had something to prove, a grandstander who, though creative, took dangerous risks with his plane and his navigator. The universal reaction among his fellow pilots was rejection and disgust. Even his best friend, though he loved him and remained loyal to him, eventually had to confront him with how he was hurting himself and the team. The movie is really a story about a boy becoming a man. It is only after the Cruise character accidentally contributes to the death of his navigator friend in a tight aerial maneuver and suffers the grief of that, and only after he loses the competition for quote-unquote Top Gun to the more mature Iceman, that he begins to move from adolescence to manhood. The difference between the hero and the mature warrior is precisely the difference between Cruise's character and Iceman, the man who is possessed by the grandstander bully pole of the hero's shadow, has an inflated sense of his own importance and his own abilities. As a corporate executive recently told us, when confronted with the young heroes in his company, he has to tell them from time to time, "You boys are good, but you're not as good as you think you are. You will be someday, but you're not now." The hero begins by thinking that he is invulnerable, that only the quote-unquote impossible dream is for him, that he can fight the unbeatable foe and win. But if the dream really is impossible, and if the foe really isn't unbeatable, then the hero is in for trouble. In fact, we see this often. The state of invulnerability, a manifestation of the grandstander bully and of the godlike pretensions of all these immature masculine energy forms, leaves the man under the, page 39, under the influence of the shadow hero, open to the danger of his own demise. He will shoot himself in the foot in the end. The heroic General Patton, though immensely imaginative, creative and inspiring to his troops, at least at times, sabotaged himself with his risk-taking, his immature competition with the British General Montgomery, and his insightful but boyishly brash remarks. Rather than being assigned a mission for which his true talent qualified him to head the Allied invasion of Europe, for instance, he was sidelined precisely because he was a hero and not fully a warrior. As is the case with other immature masculine archetypes, the hero is overly tied to the mother, but the hero has a driving need to overcome her. He is locked in mortal combat with the feminine, striving to conquer it and to assert his masculinity. In the medieval legends about heroes and damsels, we are seldom told what happens once the hero has slain the dragon and married the princess. We don't hear what happened in their marriage because the hero, as an archetype, doesn't know what to do with the princess once he's won her. He doesn't know what to do when things return to normal. The hero's downfall is that he doesn't know and is unable to acknowledge his own limitations. A boy or a man under the power of the shadow hero cannot really realize that he is a mortal being. Denial of death, the ultimate limitation on human life, is his specialty. In this connection, we might think for a moment about the heroic nature of our Western culture. Its main business seems to be, as is often said, the quote-unquote conquest of nature, its use and manipulation. Pollution and environmental catastrophe are the increasingly obvious penalties for such a brash and immature project. The field of medicine operates on the usually unspoken assumption that disease and eventually death itself can be eliminated. Our modern worldview has serious difficulty facing human limitations. When we do not face our true limitations, we are inflated, and sooner or later, our inflation will be called to account. Let's see how much time do we have to read. Oh, we're almost done the chapter. Let's finish this chapter up. Page 39. We're reading the book King, Warrior, Magician, Lover. Leave a like if you haven't already. Please leave a like. I appreciate your feedback and comments. I'll read your comments if they're interesting, and questions as well. Page 39, The Coward. The boy possessed by the coward, the other pole of the hero's bipolar shadow, shows an extreme reluctance to stand up for himself in physical. Page 40. In physical confrontations, he will usually run away from a fight, perhaps excusing himself by claiming that is more quote-unquote manly to walk away. But he will feel wretched in spite of his excuses. It is not only physical fights he will avoid, however. He will tend to allow himself to be bullied emotionally and intellectually as well. When someone else is demanding or forceful with him, the boy under the power of the coward and unable to feel heroic about himself will cave in. He will easily acquiesce to pressure from others. He will feel invaded and run over like a doormat. When he has had enough of this, however, the hidden grandiosity of the grandstander bully within him will erupt and launch a violent verbal and or physical assault upon his quote-unquote enemy, an assault for which the other is totally unprepared. But having described the negative or shadow aspect of the grandstander / coward, we nonetheless have to ask ourselves why the hero is present in our psyches at all. Why is this a part of our personal developmental history as men? What is the evolutionary adaptation that it serves? What the hero does is mobilize the boy's delicate ego structures to enable him to break with the mother at the end of boyhood and face the difficult tasks that life is beginning to assign him. The hero energies call upon the boy's masculine reserves, which will be refined as he matures in order to establish his independence and his competence. For him to be able to experience his own budding abilities, to quote unquote push the outside of the envelope and test himself against the difficult, even hostile forces in the world. The hero enables him to establish a beachhead against the overwhelming power of the unconscious, much of which, for men at least, is experienced as feminine as mother. The hero enables the boy to begin to assert himself and define himself as distinct from all others, so that ultimately, as a distinct being, he can relate to them fully and creatively. The hero throws the boy up against the limits, against the seemingly intractable. It encourages him to dream the impossible dream that might just be possible after all, if he has enough courage. It empowers him to fight the unbeatable foe that, if he is not possessed by the hero, he might just be able to defeat. Page 41. Reading the book, King, Warrior, Magician, Lover, Chapter 3, Boy Psychology. Page 41. Once again, it is our position that all too often therapists, not to mention relatives, friends, co-workers, and people in positions of authority, attack, knowingly or unknowingly, the quote-unquote shining of the hero in men. Ours is not an age that wants heroes. Ours is an age of envy, in which laziness and self-involvement are the rule. Anyone who tries to shine, who dares to stand above the crowd, is dragged back down by his lackluster and self-appointed quote-unquote peers. We need a great rebirth of the heroic in our world. Every sector of human society, wherever that may be on the planet, seems to be slipping into an unconscious chaos. Only the heroic consciousness, exerting all its might, will be able to stop this slide toward oblivion. Only a massive rebirth of courage in both men and women will rescue the world against enormous odds. The hero picks up his sword and charges into the heart of the abyss, into the mouth of the dragon, into the castle under the power of an evil spell. What is the end of the hero? Almost universally, it's in legend and myth, he quote-unquote dies, is transformed into a god and translated into heaven. We recall the story of Jesus' resurrection and ascension, or of Oedipus' final disappearance in a flash of light at Colonius, or Elijah's ascent into the sky in a fiery chariot. The quote-unquote death of the hero is the quote-unquote death of boyhood, of boy psychology, and it is the birth of manhood and man psychology. The quote-unquote death of the hero in the life of a boy or a man really means that he has finally encountered his limitations. He has met the enemy, and the enemy is himself. He has met his own dark side, his very unheroic side. He has fought the dragon and been burned by it. He has fought the revolution and drunk the dregs of his own inhumanity. He has overcome the mother and then realized his incapacity to love the princess. The quote-unquote death of the hero signals a boy's or man's encounter with true humility. It is the end of his heroic consciousness. True humility, we believe, consists of two things. The first is knowing our limitations, and the second is getting the help we need. If we are possessed by the hero, we will fall under the negative aspect of this energy and live out, as Tom Cruise's character did, the inflated feelings and actions of the grand stander bully. We will walk. Page 42. We will walk over others in our insensitivity and arrogance, and eventually we will self-destruct, ridiculed and cast out by others. If we are in the passive pole of the hero's bipolar shadow, possessed by the coward, we will lack the motivation to achieve anything of significance for human life. But if we access the hero energy appropriately, we will push ourselves up against our limitations. We will adventure to the frontiers of what we can be as boys, and from there, we can make the transition. We will be prepared for our initiation into manhood. We'll take a little break here, folks, on page 42. Tune in the next video. Another day, I'll be reading chapter 4. This is getting exciting now. Man psychology. Oh yeah, now we're playing in the big leagues, kids. Page 43. Tune in next video. And this has been reading of King, Warrior, Magician, Lover by Robert Moore and Douglas Gillette. I encourage you to get the book yourself, do your own personal studies on this book, and start transforming, young men. It's time to act like men. No longer are we going to act like emasculated kitties. This is Jeremy Reads Aloud, self-help books. Leave a like. Appreciate your comments. Thank you for watching. Have a transformative weekend, folks. And embrace the divine masculine. For goodness sakes, do it. Take care of yourselves. Bye.